Hello, this is Pastor Dana with our Wednesday chat. I was reading in Acts chapter 12. I'm sure you've been kind of reading the scriptures as we've been going along with the series. And this particular chapter didn't get focused on a Sunday morning service, but there's some good things in here. And in Acts 12, Herod is part of the persecution that's going on in the church. Herod is arresting believers and having them imprisoned. He actually arrests James, who was one of the disciples, and has him put to death. And he's so impressed with the reaction of some of the enemies of some of the Christians that he decides to arrest Peter. The implication is Peter is going to have the same fate. But here's Peter in prison, and the church is gathering, and they are praying very hard, very passionately, that he'll be released in some way. So they're praying for him. He's being guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. So my math says that's 16 soldiers. That's a pretty heavy guard that he has on him. And there he is. He goes to sleep. This is probably in his mind, his last night. And he's asleep. And then as the church is praying, we read that an angel shows up. And one of the things the angel does is poke Peter. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. I'll come back to that in just a second. And then we meet this young girl, Rhoda. I want to read some of the scripture here. Peter, this is after the chains have fallen off. Peter is walking out of the prison. He shows up to where the believers are gathered. He knocks at the door. There he is answered by this girl named Rhoda. And we read here, he knocked at the door entrance, and a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer the door. And when she recognized Peter's voice, she was so overjoyed, she ran back without opening it and exclaimed, "Peter is at the door." Now, this would probably be a good place to insert a blonde joke, but I'm not going to do that. But here's 3 observations that I'd like to make here. First of all, the fact that Peter was sleeping. This is probably his last night on earth in the natural. He is expecting he's probably going to be executed, just as James was. And there he is, and he sleeps. And obviously a deep sleep, because an angel had to poke him to wake him up. So here's the thing that I see in Peter. He's certainly not comfortable. You can't be comfortable when you're thinking, I'm probably going to be killed tomorrow. But yet he was at rest. And I think that has some application to some of the situations that we live in today. We're not always comfortable. This is not a comfortable time, but we can be at rest. Peter certainly was. Here's the second thing I'd observe here. Prayer is so powerful. So exciting to see the church gathered together there and praying diligently for Peter to be delivered. It's interesting, though, isn't it, as you read Scripture, when he is delivered, they're kind of shocked about the whole thing. I don't know if they imagined it would be like it ended up being, but God answers prayer, and prayer is powerful. I heard a story about a church who was praying that a nightclub would be shut down in their town. And it turned out the nightclub burned down to the ground. So pretty exciting. Well, the nightclub sued the church. And they said it was the church's fault because they'd been praying. The church's defense was, we had absolutely nothing to do with this. The judge made this observation. He said, it's clear here that the nightclub believes in the power of prayer, but the church does not. Maybe that's the case sometimes with us, but we need to understand that prayer is powerful, and we launch into it, and we expect great things to happen. So keep praying, so important. Here's the third observation I want to make. The chains that were on Peter's wrists fell off. And as the angel marched him through the prison, doors opened automatically. This was before the time of automatic doors. This was just the power of God at work. So chains falling off, doors opening all by themselves. I'm talking about iron doors, jail type doors. And then he gets to the house where the Christians are gathered, and no chains fall off, no doors open automatically. He has to knock. And not only does he have to knock, he has to keep on knocking and keep on knocking and keep on knocking. Rhoda's in there. She's kind of lost sight of what's actually happening. The people in the room, they're not even sure they believe her. They say, got to be a ghost or whatever. And but he's out there still knocking. And finally, they open up and receive him with great joy. Here's the thing I notice in our lives. Sometimes, and maybe you notice this too, sometimes God opens doors for us just powerfully and automatically, and it's miraculous, and we just go, that was so obviously God at work in my life, how he dropped those chains, how he opened those doors. But have you noticed there's some other times in our life where the doors don't open and we're standing there knocking, 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 and there's some Rhoda at the door that isn't opening it, some human that is clogging the system up a little bit. And sometimes we just have to continue to be persistent, continue knocking, continue knocking. I hope that is something that you can kind of turn into something for good in your life, a great observation. Just keep pressing in to the things that God has witnessed into your heart. And we're praying that you have a great week, and keep on in your relationship with him. Keep pressing in, keep walking with him, stay close to him. And we hope to see you for our online service this coming weekend.